is Tenacious Recovery, the podcast. Got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. My name's Vinny. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
And I'm Sam, alcoholic and an addict.
And we are in Sewell, New Jersey, in the think tank. And Sam introduced our special guest.
Again, with great pleasure, I get to introduce a coworker of mine turned friend. You know what's funny about this guy? Is that Steve here, I didn't know him. I knew of him. I knew I was going to be working with him, right? Never talked to him a day in my life. I took this job, and I know I've shared about this before, that over the summer, I went through great turmoil in my marriage as causing my own character defects. Like, I made a ton of fucking mistakes. I almost got divorced. I had just left my career of like 8.5 years. I started a new job. I was going through a ton of changes. I was stressed out as ever. And I get a call from this guy. He calls me, dude, because he, I guess, heard that I was having like a little bit of a hard time.
Right.
And he instantly was like, yo, come meet me really fast. Like, I want to help you. Like, I've been through something similar that you're going through right now.
Cool. I
did just that. I never forget. I went to this AA meeting with my first sponsor in South Philly. Not to disrespect Alcoholics Anonymous, but it was like the worst AA meeting I
Really?
ever went to.
Oh,
yeah,
my God.
dude. It was like a bunch of like really hip people, and they were just like complaining about traffic and the political climate. And I was fucking,
Lord.
dude, I was pissed. Like, I was really unhappy. But then I met Steve for dinner afterwards, and he like helped without knowing me, dude, helped me tremendously. Like, kept my will aligned with God's, let me know, like, despite what was going to happen. I mean, my wife and I ended up reconciling, but like, that was my initial like interpretation of Steve.
Wow.
Like, just a good dude who would give you his undivided attention and the shirt off his back. It's
great.
With great pleasure that I introduce Steve Sarica. Steve, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
We've been talking about this for a while.
We have.
Yeah.
I remember that night we went over to Polizzi.
We went to the social club.
That was the first
Yeah,
night.
yeah, yeah.
You went to the social club?
Went to the social club
All
for
right.
dinner.
Oh, yeah.
I was going through it, buddy.
Oh, big
like,
time.
I was like ready.
I remember you were going through it in the summertime.
I was like basically.
Thank God you married an angel.
I did.
Who took you? Who? You
God
know,
bless
yeah.
her.
Who forgive
Multiple
you.
times over. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout my life. But like at the time, unfortunately, like as an alcoholic, like I was obsessing over what the circumstances of my life were going to look like. You know what I mean? And I'm like counting the dollars in my bank account,
Yep.
realizing like what I have to part ways with. Like, that's how crazy I was.
Wow.
Of course, like, you know, God, I love my wife more than anything in the world. And like, we worked everything out. She puts up with a lot of shit with me. And Steve, man, Steve was there. Steve had all the knowledge and experience of what this looked like. And I'm sure that's a big part of your story.
Yeah,
and
big
we'll get to
time.
that at a certain point.
He had all the knowledge you needed at the
That,
time.
like, and despite like whatever was going to happen after talking to him, like I genuinely felt like I was going to be okay.
Cool.
You know what I mean? Which is what AA is all about, right?
Exactly.
Like, just working with another guy that's been through something similar to you and just holding our hand through life so we don't drink or use, you know?
You do get one of those meetings every once in a while where it's just not you don't get a good feeling from the meeting.
Dude, fuck
But you
that
just go to
meeting.
another one. And you'll get, you know, every once in a while, people strike out. You know what I mean?
I mean, obviously, I could have gotten a lot out of that meeting if I was in the right place to
Yeah.
sit at a meeting like
Yeah.
that.
You were
But
barely
because
listening.
I was in a bad spot, and it was a bunch of people whining about things that had nothing to do with alcoholism.
Right.
And that pissed me off royally. I'll never forget that day.
Yep.
They're
So
called
Steve-
first world issues.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it was
Oh,
like
I got caught in
traffic.
traffic. What?
Yeah,
Dude,
my
people
cat ran
talking
away.
about
I'm living
like,
under a friggin' bridge.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
Got caught in
exactly.
traffic.
Yeah.
I'm like going around. I'm like 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. You all should be ashamed of yourselves, dude. Like that you had the audacity to come into Alcoholics Anonymous and talk like this, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
God.
almost got up and left, but I was instilled early on that if you leave a meeting, you basically like the recovery house I got sober at. If you picked your phone up in a meeting and the owner heard about it, like you were thrown out.
Wow.
Like it was so strict. You had to sit through every meeting. Like the community was always gauging our attention because everyone knew the owner. So it was like militant that you paid attention and you couldn't even go to the bathroom. He was like, didn't want to hear you about you going to the bathroom. You hold it till the end.
Wow.
Sorry about that rant, bro.
No worries.
This isn't about me. This is
worries.
about
Yeah,
you.
that was like a 4.5 minute rant.
I'm really sorry.
No
But
worries.
I'm like,
that's
dude,
your, Steve, that's your
I know.
introduction.
Yeah.
my introduction is
Yep.
like,
It's a good introduction.
It
Yeah.
was, dude. He was aces,
Yep.
dude. He he put me at ease like no other. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
What month was
that introduction definitely
July, August.
Yeah.
that
July,
introduction
August, yeah.
definitely speaks a lot about your character, though.
Ju-
Although
Yeah.
it was long winded, it speaks a lot about your character.
Dude, it does. He like put me at bay like big time. And I've like really gotten to know him over the course of like the last year. Watched him go through, got things that you guys honestly have had kind of similar years. You know what I mean? Of what you've both sort of been through this year. And I've learned a lot about Steve and his past, but I've never really heard the full scope of his story. Like I said, heard tidbits across, and I honestly can't wait to hear it. So, Steven,
Yeah.
start me off from the beginning, bro.
Of course.
From the very
Wherever
beginning.
Very
you
beginning.
feel like.
Yeah, no problem. So I was born in Rahway, New Jersey. Big Italian family, obviously. Big Italian family, born in Rahway, New Jersey. You know, a lot of my family was from Linden, Elizabeth area. And, you know, mom and dad were there. Dad's hard worker, owned electrical contracting business. You know, came home at night. Mom took care of me. You know, everything was good. I was used to that whole family life. You know, that was a big thing for me. You know, my whole life was being close to family. And I'd say around maybe elementary school, we ended up moving down to Monmouth County, New Jersey, to Ocean Township. You know, big house. It was like a whole change.
I was going to say, it's nice down
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It was like a whole change. We went from like this like small townhouse. My dad's business started skyrocketing off, and now we're living in this huge house in Ocean Township, you know, picket fence, the whole 9 yards, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know, growing up for me, I don't know, man. You know, it's like a lot of people say, you know, they always felt like they were like different or like not a part of, you know, and I
Yeah.
always had that in me for some reason.
Yep.
Like I always wanted to be, I guess, accepted and loved too.
I've always had that feeling of always, even still today, being on the outside looking in
Yes.
all the time.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
even still, I still can't shake that
Yeah.
feeling. Like it's not all the time, but it's still with me.
Yeah.
Deep down.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Yep. So like, you know, having that feeling at an early age, you know, before, you know, any addiction came into play, you know, I was able to see my addictions later on of like what was going on. And it was like the first thing was like people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
like validation and love. You
Absolutely.
know, acceptance. That was my first addiction because I had this void in me where, you know, I felt like I needed people around me to feel happy. And I was the only child, no brothers or sisters, you know, so like it was just me, you know. So, you know, I was able to be that chameleon, you know what I'm saying, growing up, where like I fit in with everybody. I was like friends with everybody, the, you know, the jocks, the skateboarders, the goths, you
Right.
know, whoever it was, if, you know, I wanted to be a part of, I ended up somehow like infiltrating my way into that group, you know, just so like I can feel a part of something, you know. And, you know, that went on for a while, you know, in school. And like, you know, I had a lot of friends and you know, everything was pretty cool. You know, I can't say my childhood was like really messed up or I had any huge traumatic issues. You know, so I got to middle school. I'd say that's when, you know, things started changing a little bit. You know, started hanging out with some different crowds. And, you know, again, everything was pretty solid, you know. Mom and dad still there. Ended up moving my grandparents into the house with us because we had the room, which I'll get at that later because that's a big part of my story too. And then, you know, ended up going into high school. Now, when I got into high school, this was a big turning point for me because I wasn't introduced to alcohol yet, right? I wasn't introduced to any narcotics or drugs yet. But still, I was still like going off of that, like wanting that acceptance from others, right? And I think that's what really pushed me into, you know, drinking and using, right? Because it was like, I want to fit in. I want to be a part of, you know, I want to hang out with the popular kids. I want the girl, you know what I'm saying? That was a big thing. I always want the girl, you know?
Just chasing the coast.
Exactly, exactly.
Chasing the coast.
And you know what's funny? Let me rewind for a second because I always had this like this thing inside of me where like I always wanted to like be around like the party too.
Yeah, of course.
And like I remember like in 4th or 5th grade, right, sitting in my room watching MTV Summer Break, right? And all my other friends, this is what their dreams were, right? Basketball player, baseball, you know, sports, all that. I'm sitting in my room looking at all these girls on this TV. Everyone's drinking, and I'm like, that's what I want.
That looks like a good
You know
time.
what I'm saying?
That looks like
At
fun.
like 4th, 5th grade,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like dressed up in my clothes, thinking I'm like all cool, you know what I'm saying? Like getting like fresh to like sit in my room by myself to watch MTV
Oh my
Spring
God.
Break.
Oh my God.
Because
That's
like
pretty
that's where
funny.
I want to go.
Buddy, if
you
that
know?
isn't alcoholism 101, I don't.
That's
You're
great.
100% right.
100%.
Yeah,
Like the whole gear, the Tommy Hilfiger
Of
jeans,
course,
the whole
bro.
getup.
You're
Like,
by
to watch
yourself
TV.
in
what,
your
dude?
house.
I'm by myself. I'm in 4th grade.
Just to watch TV.
Just to
Love
watch
it.
TV. To
Love
watch
it.
Spring
Soda and
Break.
Cheez-Its, dude.
Yeah, exactly,
Sitting
exactly.
there.
I'm like, that's what I want to do.
You're
I wanna-
imagining. You're imagining you're on the show,
100%.
man. No doubt.
100%. So like,
That's funny.
my mind was always in that mindset. Like once I started drinking, it was always like, what's the next big thing? You know what I'm saying? So
When'd you
No.
start drinking?
around like 15, 16.
Yeah.
And you know,
You're
that-
well into high school at that
well
point.
into high school. Yeah, well into
Right.
high school. Now, around this time, I'll say the turning point for me was when my parents got divorced. Right. So you know, before then, my parents would tell this too. It's so funny that I would swear up and down like I would never do drugs. You know, never do drugs, never drink, none of that. I was
Sure.
so against it. Right. And then I remember the day I got the phone call from my dad, and he said, "Son, I need you to come home." And I'm like, this is weird, you know, like I don't get phone calls like this. And I was at my friend's house, and I remember it vividly. And I'm walking home, and I'm like, something's wrong. This is weird. So I get into the house. My dad's sitting at the kitchen table. I'm looking around. Mom's not there. And he says, I need you to sit down. So I said, okay. I sit down. He says, you know, I need to let you know something. Me and your mother are getting divorced. And I'm like, out of left field,
Right.
you know?
That's a rough age for that to happen, too.
Definitely.
man.
Yeah.
It's very emotionally, like, developmental.
Yes.
You're definitely capable of, like, feeling the weight of it on yourself.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I almost feel like, not to say there's a right time for your parents to get divorced, but I feel like probably 8 and, like, post 18
Yeah.
would be the most. Like, I grew up with divorced parents. That's all I ever know. My parents
Right.
were divorced before I was 1 year old.
You were
That's
used
all,
to that.
That's all I
Right.
knew.
Yeah.
That's all
That's
I
all you
ever
knew.
knew.
But
And
sometimes there's a compensation there
Yeah.
where if you're 15, your parents are getting divorced, mentally maybe you can't handle that. So you seek relief
Exactly.
in alcohol or
in
drugs or
something.
whatever.
Yeah.
100%.
But if you were 20, maybe you're mature enough to kind of handle the divorce.
yeah.
It's just one of those
It's
things.
one of those things you never know.
Well, that's what happened to me. You know, like later on in life, ended up realizing a lot about that. But you know, when that all happened, you know, my whole world was turned upside down because all I knew was family. You know, I had the family
course.
where we would go on vacations together, all the neighbors, you know what I'm saying? Like it was like that still like 90s, you know, togetherness that
course,
you don't
yeah.
get today. You
You
know, we
don't-
would go into each other's neighbors' houses and eat
We
dinner and have parties
we
and all
didn't
this
have
stuff.
phones. We just
No,
came home
exactly.
when we came
Right.
home. You know
Yep,
what I mean?
play outside till the street lights came on, you know, manhunt, all that
we did
fun
the
stuff.
same thing, dude.
Yeah, so
being Italian helps with that whole
Exactly, that too.
family thing too.
Yep.
You
So,
know,
you know, I was very used to that big family life.
it's
and-
just cultural, is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I
Very
grew up
cultural.
with it too.
Yep. So exactly, you know, holidays, all that, very big.
Sure.
So you know that, like I said, that flipped my world upside down, and you know, because I never saw my parents fight.
You never saw them fight?
No.
Did you
Wow.
ever see them, if you don't mind me asking, have like much of a relationship though?
You know what? Now that's a good question because now that I look back at it, I remember seeing them have a relationship, but a lot of it was more for me. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of it was
Yeah.
about me.
Yeah.
You know, like my parents would really come together when it was like for me, you know?
Right.
You know, they would go out to dinner. My dad's a big motorcycle guy his whole life. You know, they would go out on the bike, they'd go out to dinner and stuff. You know, they would do things, you know, but like now that you said that, like a lot of it was like for me too, though, you know? And
Probably. I mean,
yeah.
they kept it together as long as they could.
That's an
and then it was
interesting
like,
point.
now I'm
Well,
done.
it's one of those things where my wife and I talk about this a lot. Like we for a while, and I'm not like trying to disclose too much, but we like thought it was weird to be like intimate in front of our kids, like in any capacity. You know what I mean? But now we've decided, like, how do you teach them what love looks like? You know what I mean? Or what intimacy looks like? Or does that even like define love? You know what I mean?
You're talking about, public displays of affection.
Correct. But like not like over the top, but like
you're not going to make out with your wife in front of your 3 kids.
We try to not do that.
Right.
And we try to not fight in front of our kids also. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. My wife will tell me about myself in front of anybody, and I'll do the same. But we also decided like it's very healthy for them to see what a healthy marriage looks like.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you want them,
you have to instill that in
when
your
they
head.
get older.
Exactly. They have to know what being a partner, being a husband or being a wife like means.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle, dude. But I'll tell you what, that you thinking back on that in your situation has got to be like kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, because you know what? Like, now that you said that, like, I'm sitting here thinking about, like, when did I ever see my parents, like, hug or kiss?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can't really think of, like, when I saw that,
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy that you said that. But yeah, getting back to that, I sat at that table and, my dad straight up said, what was going on. You know what I'm saying? He ended up meeting somebody else, and that was the case. And, I instantly caught a resentment at that time. Without knowing any details, without understanding life yet, without understanding relationships.
Gotcha.
I instantly said, you know what? My dad broke this family, right? Where's my mom? And that's it. I'm checked out.
Right.
That's when I checked out in life. Literally from that day on, I think my parents maybe were trying to get it together, and it just didn't happen. It maybe lasted a week or two. My dad leaves the house. My mom's in this big house, right? So now it's me and my mom, right? And, I'm in high school, right? I'm checked out. All I want to do is party now, right? So now drinking gets into my life.
You turn it up.
I turn it up.
You got to fill that void.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm filling that void, right? And now my house is the party house, right? So, picture this, right? I have this big house on like 3 acres of property. We have a whole finished gym in the backyard, right? Like my dad built like a whole skate park for me and stuff because I was into skateboarding, all that.
Yeah,
it was
same.
sick.
I wish I had that.
We would ride dirt bikes and all that. It was awesome.
That's funny. Right, much where we're sitting right now, there was a half pipe in the backyard.
We had
of this property.
a 32-foot half pipe
in
my backyard.
My dad laid a whole slab of concrete down in the backyard, and we built all ramps on it and everything.
I swear to God, you kids from New Jersey, that's awesome.
Dude.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
It was nuts.
We used to have to go down to FDR and like try to make it out of there alive.
I used to love the party down there.
I used to skate FDR. Yeah.
I used to skate FDR too.
Same,
my
dude.
dad, so funny
I didn't
thing,
have it at my house though.
My
That's
parents
awesome.
Neither did I growing up.
I'm just jealous.
Believe me.
To 2001 X Games.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
They took me there.
That's so
yeah,
sick.
it was great. It was the first experience with FDR, Love Park, that whole
that's
thing.
awesome,
I was big into all so I wasn't like a big team sports guy. I was more of like snowboarding, surfing,
course.
by myself, like that's what I loved. So, getting back to that, being in that house with my mom, having that party house, like I changed that whole gym. My dad built this beautiful home gym, and I'm taking all the weights out, everything, and I'm putting up beer pong tables, kegs, sound systems.
You're setting
like
it up.
insane.
That's a party.
And what's better than that, of everyone wanting to come to my house? There comes that acceptance again.
Yeah. Yep.
There
There
comes
you go.
that love. There comes that I'm a part of. I need people in my life.
The clout you were always wanting.
Always wanting something.
That's like the family you're wanting.
Always wanting something. So, my mom obviously got, really depressed. They were married for, I think it was like 30 years.
Wow.
And she was battling her own demons, and, I never put anything past, what I'm saying, look down on her for that. Like she was really going through it, but there was no supervision over me anymore.
No.
Right.
So like now it's just me, my friends, I'm going to school. I'm making friends with all the older kids, right? I'm getting picked up. I'm running out the front doors on regular school days to go smoke weed, hang out, drink, not go to school. And that was my whole, almost my whole pretty much high school experience. I was a very low grade student because I didn't care. I believed if I applied myself back then, I probably would have been really good at school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I had no interest, because my mind was just totally done, because of what happened. And I remember high school ending, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had no, like, really...
You didn't apply to colleges?
I didn't apply to colleges. Bro, I barely graduated high school.
I didn't graduate high school, bro.
So I couldn't walk. They wouldn't let me walk. I had to go to this after-school summer program called Maycom.
I've heard of Maycom.
To get my high school diploma.
Oh, wow.
Because I had so many days missed. Grades were terrible. And you know what? Typical addict and alcoholic, all the grades that I did pass, right? I always manipulated my teachers.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it was
it's
always
high
like
school.
schmoozing up to them. They liked me. Oh, don't worry about it, Steven. I'll pass you on
You're
this
fine.
test.
Yeah.
You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right, So, like, it was always like me manipulating my way, getting what I want, getting through the holes and the cracks of things, And, once high school ended, I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to college. My dad owns his own electrical contracting company. So, I'm going to get into construction, right?
Yeah.
In the past, when I was younger, I worked in my dad's shop. I would clean up the tools and stuff like that. So I kind of knew a little bit about the trade. And, at this time, like I said, my dad was out of the house. Mom's in the house. Me and my dad are trying to have this relationship, right?
Yeah.
Gives me a job with him, right? Hires me for his business, right? Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, family business, successful. My dad's thinking, I want my son to take the business over, right?
Sure.
Of course, don't even see what's in front of me. I'm young. I'm 17, 18 now. And all I'm worrying about is partying, right? So like I said, going back to that, finding the next big thing, right? So, I got tired of the house parties and the keggers and all that stuff. So I ended up meeting these kids, which is so crazy because I sought these people out on MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Of course, brother.
So
yeah.
I see this group of kids, right? And these kids are from New York. And I'm like looking at their pages, and they're in these like nightclubs and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, what's that about? That looks shiny and fun. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know these kids, right? I'm in a totally different state. I messaged this kid to become friends. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? It
trying
seems
to come
like
get it
yeah,
in.
I'm trying to do what you guys are doing. You know what I'm saying? He messages me back. He's like, all right. He's like, yeah. He's like, you smoke weed? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, let's meet up. Perfect. There we go. Boom, in.
Yeah.
Right? Meet this kid. End up driving out to Monroe, New Jersey. Big house out there. All these kids are from New York and Jersey. And now I get introduced to this whole new world, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm out of my hometown. I'm out of the party house scenes.
Right.
Now I get taken to this after hours club, right? When I'm 17 years old with a fake ID. We had to go at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Because the club opened at 10 o'clock and then it would close at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, right? So I walk into this place and I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
This is something different.
Next level.
Next level.
Yeah.
I'm in Manhattan. I'm 17 years old. I'm in this nightclub. There's girls in showers. There's 4 floors. The music is really good. I mean, and there's drugs everywhere. Right?
That's when you get into the weird stuff. I've been to places like that.
That place got really weird.
That's when you put something up your nose you never even heard of before.
So things got pretty interesting and weird during my whole New York nightlife escapade, right?
Yeah.
But at this time, my addiction hasn't gone off yet. I'm like a weekend warrior.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm working during the week, but the thing is of what I've noticed is that all that was on my mind during that work week was the weekend.
Yeah.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? What am I going to do this weekend?
Yeah.
Especially after that experience. It was like I literally had a spiritual experience in that nightclub.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, okay, going back to the spring break, story. Now I'm like, oh, I'm almost there. This is the closest thing to that.
If
There's
anything,
beautiful
it's-
women,
yeah.
there's drugs, this is fun. I'm out, about all this stuff is now coming into my life. And, that goes on for a while. And, I'm going to say I had a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I can't sit here and say it was all bad. I had a blast.
Buddy,
back
it's
then.
always fun.
It's always fun in the beginning.
In the first,
Absolutely.
it's fun.
The best.
That's what
It's
keeps you
fun.
coming back.
Exactly.
Buddy, it was even fun up until after I'd been to detox for the first time. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Exactly.
I also went to detox for the first time when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was still fun.
Yeah,
You
yep.
know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't think anyone could deny the fact
No,
that
100%.
we don't wind up where we do if we aren't chasing anything that isn't
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up drugs and I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Day one. Like
Right.
that just
Yeah.
didn't happen.
No,
you know?
100%, brother.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know what? Like, I never had that story where, like, you know, I just went into hard drugs and I was sitting in my room and getting high. Like, you know, it all progressed, you know, the progression, you know. And this lifestyle I was living, you know, I met a lot of different types of people and friends. And, you know, we were like 18, 19, thinking that we're like these rock stars, you know. And, you know, you know, I meet this kid, Steve, who is one of my best friends to this day. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, they owned a huge roofing company, United Roofing. You know United Roofing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, they had every car in the driveway, right? Every brand new Mercedes-Benz, 2 big yachts in Point Pleasant, jet skis, all this stuff. And, you know, in our heads, I'm blowing this up like, oh, we made it. Like, this is,
Right.
this is, like, thinking this is
Yeah.
mine. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
We're
His parents made
It's
it,
his
not
parents
his
made it,
parents
not
made
me.
it, yeah.
We're using this stuff like it's ours. We're
Yeah.
taking all these different cars
Right.
out on the weekends, picking these girls up, bringing them
Right.
to the boats, you know, all this stuff, living this crazy lifestyle at 18, 19 years old. And we're thinking like, well, we're good. This is us, you know? Meanwhile, I barely have money in my pocket, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm literally saving up all my money with my friends for the weekend.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
how much money can we put together to buy as many ecstasy pills, jars of ketamine, and, you know, GHB
yeah,
and
of course.
cocaine or whatever.
GHB,
You know what I'm
wow,
saying? Like
dude, yeah.
whatever was in that club, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, of course.
So, you know, I get hooked into that lifestyle, and you know, I'm, you know, at the time, I'm like, oh, it's all about the music. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's all about the music.
It's all
you
about
know?
music,
like,
Dad.
Yeah. That was my excuse.
What
I
year
love the
was
music.
this? What year was this?
2007 was when I started. 2006,
Yeah,
2007.
that was like the beginning.
Bro,
like
this was-
electronic
listen,
dance music,
listen.
like on
Right.
set.
I'm gonna say this, right? If I showed you my MySpace pictures,
I would love
with
to
the
see 'em.
blowouts. This
Oh,
was
yeah.
before Jersey Shore, and
Before
Mike
all
the
that.
Situation,
Oh, yeah,
Pauly
yeah,
D.
yeah.
I was in Seaside Heights way before they filmed that
Oh,
show.
they made that show about Steve. That's what you were
100%.
saying.
There you
Yeah.
And there were kids that I was hanging out with that were like these big MySpace
Of
kids.
course,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, so this was way before that.
Way
you know what I'm
before all
saying?
that.
Mike the Situation, if you're watching this, I'm letting you know.
that's
He's
pretty
the
fun.
king of that. Right?
Ah.
But anyway, so, you know, I'm in this scene and having a fun, having a great time. And, you know, I remember the day that, you know, I look back and I'm like, the first day, like, it kind of like went pretty like bad in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, I was out all night. I'm up all night, and you know, I get back to my friend's house, and you know, I couldn't sleep. Right? We pull up in his driveway. It's probably like 6 o'clock in the morning. I am whacked out of my mind, and his parents are sleeping, and we're tiptoeing in the house to go in there, and like my head is rocking at this point.
Yeah.
Right? I am like just speeded out of my mind.
You're coming down.
I'm coming down.
The worst.
And I said to him, I said, dude, I am not feeling good. Like, I don't know what to do. And he pulls out this little blue pill, right? This was my first introduction to any type of like pharmaceuticals, right?
Was it? What was it?
It was a Roxy.
Oh, it was open.
Right.
Yeah, it was
So
30,
like I didn't
yeah.
even go from like the perk 5s to the 10s. Like I went straight to
You
like,
went straight to
the
the-
30.
straight to,
To the
devil.
good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So he breaks this pill out, crushes it in half. I do my thing. And that was the moment where, out of all my using of alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, all the other narcotics and drugs, that was my like, I found it.
Yeah.
I've arrived.
Yeah, it's the hug from God.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. It
This is
literally
what
feels
I've
that
been
way.
looking for my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, from even the addiction to the love and the people and the sport, you know, anything I did 0 to 100, anything that gave me a good feeling, anything that gave me pleasure, I went full in. But I found this pill that this was it. You know what I'm saying? This is what I need in my life.
That's
you know,
the one.
I feel great. I can function on it. You know, I'm happy. There's not a worry in the world. The mind stopped. No more thoughts. You know, no more craziness. Everything
Yep.
quieted down.
Yeah.
And I was just warm. You know, like I felt that warm, you know,
Yeah.
blanket on me.
Yeah, it's
You
like being hugged, a baby
Exactly.
being hugged by his mother.
It's
Exactly.
It's the great hug. The itch behind your nose.
100%.
It'll change you forever.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So, you know, I do that, and I was like, wow, okay, this is what I've been looking for.
Well, it's
this whole
crazy
time.
that your first time, it was 6 a.m. after a whole night.
After all night of being out.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. And
Yeah, that's
wild.
With a mix
Oh,
of
yeah.
like probably 5 different drugs. I was
Yeah, of
on,
course,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But like that instantly brought me back. But I was like,
Sure
oh, this
did.
is nice.
Touched
you know?
you down
Yeah,
big
yeah,
time.
touched me
Yeah,
down
yeah,
big
yeah.
time.
So it brought you down nice.
100%. So,
Yeah.
so like typical, started out, doing them here and there, going to work still, life isn't too crazy at this time, still on the weekends, but it started progressing more to like, all right, let's get more of those blue pills, on the weekends. And now it's like, let me get some more of these blue pills on the weekdays now. Let me see what this is like going to work on, it's like I couldn't like pop an E-pill and go to work, or eat
Right.
mushrooms or something,
Definitely
and go do electrical work.
You definitely can't do ketamine.
Can't do that.
Can't do ketamine
what I'm
and
saying?
go do
Can't
electrical work.
I can't
Not
do a
at
jar
all.
of ketamine and go,
No.
run a bunch of wires
Exactly.
and work on a panel. You know
No,
what I'm saying?
sir.
It ain't
Yeah,
happening.
definitely not.
So, I'm doing these pills and they're getting me through. Now, I had no clue what withdrawal was or sickness or nothing. No one schooled me on this. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So, time's going on and I wake up one day, I don't have any of these pills, and I'm just thinking in my head like I'm sick, like I got a cold or something, or I got the flu or something.
the
I'm
flu.
like, oh man, I'm
That's
not
it.
feeling well.
Yeah.
So I go to work and I'm lethargic, and I'm like, what's going on here? My buddy calls me up. And he's like, hey, man, what's going on? I said, man, like, I'm not feeling well right now. He's like, what do you mean? I said, dude, I just don't feel well. Like, I'm sweating. I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin.
Right.
And he goes, you're withdrawing from the pills, right?
You were like, no.
You've
I'm
been
like,
doing this for a while, and you've
dude,
never
yeah.
felt withdrawal.
Never felt withdrawal.
I can't believe it.
So, like, I don't know if that day that was like my brain just clicked and switched to where like, okay, now I need to get this stuff to feel better.
Just to live.
You know? Like just to live.
Yeah,
like
just be normal.
that
right.
was the flip,
Yeah.
So now my brain is just correlating, okay, I don't want to feel like this. I can't function in life, so now I got to get this stuff, right? So
That's the day when it's no longer fun.
exactly.
It's no-
It's
Yeah.
no at that
Exactly.
day.
Now
I'll
it's
never
work.
forget.
Now it's work.
100%. Now it's work. Now the day is like,
I'll
all
never
right.
forget the first time I felt that feeling.
Yeah.
And you almost like are in denial.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I
I'm
just have
not
the
like
flu.
that.
100%.
Like
Right.
that's not me. I'm fine. And then you're like, in the back of your head,
yeah,
like everything's different. Now.
Yeah.
Everything changes from that.
100%.
forward.
Yep. Everything changed from that day forward for me because now I am solely waking up to go after those pills and that feeling.
Yeah.
And obviously it, happened quickly, right? To where
Sure.
now I'm not going to work. Now I'm not showing up. I get kicked out of local 102 electricians
Oh,
union,
wow.
right? My dad about wants nothing to do with me. I'm screwing up at work.
How old were you now?
This had to be like around 20, 21
Okay,
years old.
gotcha.
And now like, I'm living at home. I'm on unemployment, right? I worked all these years. I get unemployment. My mind goes, "Oh, this is great. I can sit at home and collect this money
Right.
now.
Do
I don't have to
nothing.
work,
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I can still do what I want, But as soon as that check came in, that day it was gone,
If that,
So now
yeah.
what about the next week? What am I going to
Yep.
do, right? So it ends up to what we all do, right? I start stealing. I start stealing from the person that's closest to me, right? The biggest target, my mother,
Yeah.
right? And, those late nights of the army crawls into the room where she's holding on to her pocketbook.
Commando crawl.
Commando, because her son is stealing everything in the
God.
house.
She got her purse in bed with her.
Her purse in
Wow.
bed with her. Brother, my mom had to put a restraining order on me.
Really?
That's how bad it got.
I
To
believe
where
it.
I woke up to the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office in my room saying, you got to go. Pick up your stuff.
Wow.
Your mom doesn't want you here anymore. I'm going to go drop you off at the local ShopRite with a bag of clothes, and you got to figure it out. If you come back on this property, we're arresting you and taking you to jail.
Trespass.
I mean, it got to that point, and like, my poor mother, man, like she was my rock, that woman, I say it to this day that I will never find an unconditional love like my mother had for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, she always showed up for me and always was by my side, even in my worst moments. And anything she did was for my better good, So like it got that bad, you know, to where I'm stealing everything. I'm writing checks out. I'm, you know, stealing from other people and drug dealers and all this stuff. I'm running the streets now. I'm getting crazy. I start trying to, you know, sell drugs, you know, all the stuff that we do, you know, try to sell drugs, you know what I'm saying? Definitely not successful in that area.
Make a valiant attempt. Yeah.
I'm just scraping by to even just do what I need
just
to do.
owing more
you know,
people.
thinking I'm like Tony Montana out here. You know what I'm saying?
I always talk. I'm like, they're like, did you sell drugs? I'm like, I mean, I tried.
Yeah,
always,
I tried.
yeah.
You know what I'm
like,
saying?
For years.
And then I owed a bunch of people.
Yeah,
money.
Exactly.
always
I owed
just
a bunch
was
of
on
people,
debit,
yeah.
you know
But
what I
in your
mean?
mind, you have this grandiose
course.
idea
Yeah,
that you're this
dude.
big drug dealer now.
Of
You know what
course.
I'm
The second
saying?
you have that bag, you're
Yeah.
like,
You're like, yeah, I'm the man.
Exactly.
Like I'm, you know, doing this. So
And
you
it
know,
never
oh
works.
my God, never works.
It never works.
So you know, at this time, I have no relationship with my father, right? Thank God, right? Because my dad was the type of guy. It was tough love. He knew what was going on, and he said, you know, you're not coming around here. You know what I'm saying? I want nothing to do with you if you're doing this, you know? And again, for a while, like I had that resentment against him. And I blamed all of this on that divorce, right?
at this time.
At this time.
Yeah.
That was my excuse. Well, if you never left mom and you never did this, I would never be a drug addict and I would never get high.
I would be
you
like
know?
this.
That
Yeah.
was my out.
Wow.
You know, before I realized
You did it to both
the
of them?
disease.
You did it to both of them?
No, my father.
Only to your dad.
Only to
All
my
right,
father,
cool.
you know, because, you know, again, my mother, it was me and my mom for such a long time.
Yeah.
My mom did everything to help me and try and take care of me and all of that. So, you know, this is going on and, you know, this is where it comes up to my first experience with treatment, right? I'd say, I think I was 20 was my first treatment center. And I remember the day.
Where'd you go? South Florida?
No. So here's the story, right? I went to California the first time.
Wow.
Right? I get there because I'm in my father's truck on Route 1 and 9 driving up Rahway in Rahway, Linden. And I wanted to get high so bad that he wouldn't let me out of the truck. And we're going about 40, 50 miles an hour. I jump out the car onto the highway.
Wow. What a legend. Oh, my God.
And hit the ground,
Damn.
roll, right? On a major highway, right?
Yeah.
Get up. I'm like, bye. And I start walking to my mom's apartment, right? I get to the apartment. I'm in there trying to figure out what my next move is going to be. I get a knock on the door. Boom, boom, boom. I look out the door. It's 2 police officers.
You still have
right?
the restraining order.
No, this was after. My mom ended up taking their restraining order off. Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, that all got cleared up. She was like, you know, she loves me. You know what I'm saying? So she
course.
wasn't going to hold it on me forever,
Yeah, of
you know?
course.
But, you know, the cops knock on the door and I'm like, what is this about? You know? And they're like, are you Steven Sarica? I said, yeah. They're like, we got to take you to the local hospital. We think you're trying to kill yourself.
Oh, wow.
My
Your
father
dad-
called the cops,
Nice.
gave the address.
Well, you did jump out of a moving
I did jump out of a
vehicle.
moving vehicle. Yeah, you know, they probably
that
thought
speed,
I was
yeah.
trying
That's
to
a
kill
good
myself.
assumption.
But I'm like, no, I just want to get high. Like, leave me alone.
That's
you know?
a green light on the 302,
Yeah,
brother.
green
It
light.
is. It really is. It really is. They got you good there.
Yeah.
In today's world, there's cameras on all the cars. You would have been cooked.
Oh, I would have been done. I would have
Would've
been done.
it.
So I get taken to Elizabeth, Trinitas Hospital, right?
Trinitas Hospital, yeah.
Right? So
I
here's
know
a
it
good
well.
story, right? So I'm in there. I'm 20 years old, right? I'm in the psych unit now, right? First experience ever being in type of any institution, right?
You're in a hospital psych
I'm in a
unit.
hospital psych unit.
That's rough.
And it's
And-
Elizabeth. If you knew anything about this Trinitas Hospital, probably back then it was a little bit older.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's not like anything that you would see like a new type
Today. Yeah.
psych ward or
Mm-hmm.
a section of a hospital that's a little on the older side. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have liked being there.
No, it was not a pleasant experience. So, you know, I'm in there and I think like 2 days go by and like, you know, again, here comes my chameleon out, right? I'm making friends with the people in the psych unit,
Right.
Of course you are. Yeah.
My roommate is some guy that has one leg that's saying he's seeing Civil War ghosts in the room, right? And I'm agreeing with him. He's saying, you seen him? I'm like, yeah, he's right
I
there.
see him too,
I see
yeah.
General Lee or whoever, like in the corner. You know what I'm saying?
my
I
God.
see him. You know, agreeing with them because, like, again, like I'm like, oh, I'm in this crazy environment. I'm just making friends. You know, I go make friends wherever I go. It's just nuts. So finally, the lady walks in and she's like, listen, we know you have a drug problem. Like, you're not here for mental health issues. I want to get you some help, right? So I'm like, okay, that's great. Where are we going? And she goes, there's a place in Palm Springs I want to send you to, right? So my parents come to the hospital. We sit down. We have all this huge meeting, and before you know it, I'm packing a bag and I'm at Newark Airport jumping on a plane. Right, first experience with any type of SUD, substance abuse treatment center. Right, I land in. It was in Palm Springs, so I think it was LAX. I land in LAX, and I get off the plane. I grab my bag, and I'm walking, and there's this guy holding a sign with my name on it. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this
That's
is cool,
how that
right?
goes. Yeah.
I walk out, and there's a stretch limo outside.
Jeez.
A stretch limo.
A stretch limo.
Can you imagine?
Right?
Wow.
I'm like, this is
This
the
is-
reward I get.
He's back in the MTV music
Right.
video
I'm
again.
There you
like,
go.
I'm a rock star
He's
now.
made
Right.
it back.
I made it.
Yeah.
I'm in a stretch limo going to rehab. You know what I'm saying? I get in this stretch limo, and they bring me to this place in Palm Springs, and it was a beautiful facility. The mountains are in the background, and I'm like, this ain't that bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can
Pretty
do
good.
this. This is
Yeah.
pretty good, you know? So, you know, I tell this story because I'm in this treatment center, right? And I'm 20 years old, and this is my first, experience with all this. And there's a lot of, older people in there with me, and they say to me, get this now, kid. You don't want to be like me, And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I got this. I'm going to get this now,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to be like you.
You're like
know?
me. You're the guy in treatment that goes to every group and like
Oh, yeah.
engages and like is in it.
Oh, I was
and
in it.
convinces yourself that like I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
I'm the same way, bro.
I mean, it was during Christmas time. I'm stringing lights up on the place, like engaging with everybody. I'm in the groups. I'm
president of his community every
exactly,
time.
exactly. Doing
yeah.
coin outs around the
Yeah.
fire pit.
Yeah.
Like all this craziness, right? And what happened was I'm in there, and they end up putting me on MAT at the time, right? And I don't know what MAT is. I know what Suboxone is, right? But I'm in this treatment center, and, I'm like, they're asking me, do you want to come off what you're on? And I'm like, I mean, not really. This feels good, too,
Oh, you're on subs.
I'm on
Yeah.
subs at this time for the first time. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know this whole world yet, right? And then they say, oh, you may be ADHD, right? So
Here's some Adderall.
So they give me a test to take, and they prescribe me Vyvanse.
No
Oh,
way.
Vyvanse. Wow.
Out of a substance use center at that time?
At that time.
What year was this?
This was 2009.
like 2009 ish.
Yeah,
That's
2009.
crazy.
Yeah, 2009. So this is my introduction to what I think sobriety is and recovery. Okay,
Wow.
Give me some pills,
That's
narcotics.
so crazy.
I'm in this treatment center. My dad comes, visits me. He's like, wow, you're doing so good. Meanwhile, I'm all hopped up on amphetamines and Suboxone. I'm like,
Right.
oh, this is great. Life is good.
No way.
Yeah, bro. Yup.
Hopefully that place shut down.
Yeah.
We're not going to mention the name
No.
of it, but
No, we're not gonna
hopefully it
mention
shut
it.
down.
You
Yeah.
know what's so funny, and not to interrupt your
Yeah.
story, but I was in an adolescent treatment center for the second time, the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in New Jersey. It's very well known.
Yeah.
Not the nicest place anymore. And I remember getting out for the second time, and them about a week before discharge, them looking at my prescription sheet, and they go, "You're on Adderall?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "How long you been taking
Yeah.
that?" I was like, "My whole life.
Yeah.
I can't focus. Like I'm a lunatic." And
Yeah.
they're like, "You take it as prescribed?" And I was like, "Yeah, sometimes."
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I do. They're like, "You ever put up your nose?" I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes." And they're like, "Bro, you can't take this."
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
"What do you mean I can't
Yeah.
take it?" And I proceeded to go back to my senior year of high school, not having this drug that was prescribed to me when I was fucking 7 years old.
Yeah.
Buddy, I couldn't even read a fucking
no.
page of a book without it. And God willing, I'm not saying I never touched it again after that point,
Yeah.
but I never had a script written for
Yeah.
me for any amphetamine salt ever again
Yeah.
after that day because of the doctor at that treatment center.
Yeah, yeah.
Around the same time as a child. So for you to tell me that you got on a plane and went across the country to some bougie boutique treatment center where they not only, this is before MAT was even pressed super hard.
MAT for our listeners, medication assisted treatment.
Yeah, thank you.
Just so you know.
Like back then, like they wanted abstinence first. Like when I was
Absolutely.
going to treatment back then, they were like, "Yo, you don't need this.
Yeah.
This needs to be abstinence focused." For you to tell me they not only put you on Suboxone maintenance as well as a prescription for Vyvanse is fucking criminal.
It should be,
Right?
yeah,
It's
they should be
fucking
arrested.
criminal,
100%.
dude. It's common practice today, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I no comment on whatever they
You know, the only drug
harm
they
reduction,
the only drug they prescribed me. Now, I went to treatment in 1986, right?
Yeah.
The only drug they prescribed me was Antabuse.
Yeah, I
And
believe
if
it,
you
dude.
took it and you drank, you'd get violently
Violently
ill.
ill.
That
Yeah,
was
that
what
was
they
it.
called
Yep.
medication-assisted treatment.
And that
back
was
then.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
like barbaric. Yeah.
Oh,
you get
yeah.
like super sick.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
All right, so continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
for
Sorry
interrupting
about
you.
that.
So you know,
Yeah.
this is my first introduction to being sober. What I think is sober, right? So I end up going home, you know, on the plane with 2 prescriptions. Immediately I get on the plane, I'm like eating these pills. You know what I'm saying? Like it goes out the door.
Oh, you
know?
had them in hand?
Oh, in hand. They sent me home
Oh
with 2
my
bottles.
God.
Yeah, so I'm on the plane.
2 bottles of Vyvanse?
A bottle of Vyvanse and a bottle of Suboxone.
Oh, but the orange tablets?
Tablets.
The hexagons?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, they don't even make
yeah.
those
I'm on a
anymore.
plane with 3 of them under my
Yeah,
They
tongue.
don't,
sure
they don't,
you
they don't
are.
make those
No,
anymore.
they make the film. It's all
Right.
film
Yeah,
Yeah,
now.
no, these were the
all
orange
Because of guys
sublingual.
like
Whoa,
Steven. Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
the sword on the back.
Yeah,
Oh,
I remember.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
fight against opiates. That's
Of
what I
course.
thought it meant.
The sword.
Yeah, that's probably what it did mean. They hurt more people
Yeah.
than helped.
Oh yeah, big time.
That's
so,
crazy, bro.
bro, it was crazy, and like this is my experience. So I go home, right, and now I'm back in my whole friend group, right. And I get home and like my friends like are throwing me a party, like, oh, you just got home from rehab, right? What's
course.
better? Let's throw a party. And I'm sitting there preaching to everybody, you know, like I'm not drinking, but I'm like, oh, you got to take Suboxone. This is the lifesaver. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what I think, you know, because what was given to me.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that went on for a little bit, and now I just go right back into addiction, right? That didn't fix anything. I think maybe 2 weeks later, I'm out there buying the pills again, you know, and then obviously, you know, the disease progresses, and now it leads to heroin, right? So now I'm going from the pills to the heroin, and
Oh, you came off Suboxone and just
I came
went
off
right
the,
to a bag
yeah,
of dope.
I stopped the Suboxone. I went back to the pills, and then I remember one day like I couldn't find the pills, and you know how we do it. Like I don't know, maybe if you guys did this, but when I was getting high, there was always like that, you know. Well, I'm not going to do this, right? The yets, right?
Of course.
I'll do cocaine, but I'll never do methamphetamine.
Right.
You know, I'll
Do
do
coke,
Percocet,
but never crack.
but I'll never do heroin.
Yeah,
right?
gotcha.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I did. You know
Of
what I'm saying?
course.
My nevers, right? Exactly. So I'm doing my nevers now. Now, when that happened, you know, that's when things started to get really, really bad in my life. You know, I'm living at my mom's house. Now I'm doing heroin. In the room, not showering, like, you know, barely eating, just like getting up just to survive.
Right.
You know, like that disgusting lifestyle.
Yep.
You know, I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. You know, I got cups in my room. I'm
Disgusting.
pissing in.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm so sick in the morning. I don't
Right.
even want to get up to go to the bathroom. Not even. It was horrible. You know. So, you know, and I remember at that time too. Right. This was how bad my addiction was. My grandfather gets sick, right, with cancer, and you know he gets put on hospice, and my family wouldn't even allow me to go see him.
Wow.
Are you living with your mom at this time?
Living with my mom at this time, and you know because I was so bad, they wouldn't even allow me to go see my grandfather while he was dying because they were afraid I was going to steal all the pills.
Wow.
Yeah, like that's how deep it got. You know.
Wow.
That's a shame.
It was a shame, you know, looking back on this day of, you know, now being like, man, I wish I spent some time with him, you know, like I
course.
didn't get to spend that time with him.
Of course.
And, you know, that was another big turning point in my life too, because, you know, I'm like sitting there and I'm like, wow, like I can't even go see this man. You know,
Yeah.
like they really think like, you know, I'm this terrible person. Now at the time, you know, I'm not a terrible person, but my actions were terrible.
Of course they
you
were.
know?
Sure.
And,
Sure.
you know, like I said, like I remember like going to like, you know, Christmases. Like I would go to Christmases and my family would literally lock up all their purses in the back room.
In
you
the
know?
back room?
In the back room.
Wow.
Like my whole family, my aunts, my uncles, they would put all their purses in the
They
back
knew
room.
they knew everything
and they
about
would say,
you.
Steven, you're sitting in the living room and not
Right.
getting up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how like just in it I was. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't care who you were, what I had to do. I needed to get my next one, you know? And this went on for a while, you know, and this landed me in, you know, all my other treatment centers, right? You know, just to get a little gist, I've been to treatment 28 times, multiple, you know, psych wards, detoxes. You know, at this time was like, now here's my introduction to Florida. You know, I go from New Jersey, now I'm going down to Florida, right? And when I got to Florida, I can say that I was down there for 6 years. I went to Delray Beach. I did the whole shuffle in and out of treatments down there. Halfway houses.
A lot of people went to jail over that kind of shuffle that you're talking about. Called the Palm Beach Shuffle.
100%. I was moved around a lot. But I can say that Florida was my first experience to actual recovery now.
Yeah.
Good.
Right?
That's good.
Oh, there's good 12-step recovery in
Exactly.
Florida.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of party, but there's good recovery.
There's
too.
good recovery in Florida.
I got clean in Florida too.
Yeah. So from going from New Jersey, not knowing anybody, maybe going to a couple NA meetings, nothing ever sticking, to now being in Florida. Now it's being pushed on me, right? Because down there, going to those centers, like they were pushing AA meetings, they were pushing NA meetings, they were pushing 12 steps. I wasn't used to that. I came from a facility where I was getting meds, now it's total abstinence, so now I'm getting the actual experience, So, going in and out of treatments, then finally, I want to get into like now my more recovery, road of where it started to lead to. I'm maybe this is like treatment number 20 something, and I get out, and now I'm like, you know what? I am sick and tired of this. I'm pretty much institutionalized at this time. All I know is that my insurance is like a credit card. I can go in and out of treatments. I know the best ones to go to. What meds they're going to give you here. What good food is here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, of course.
And I finally get to a point where, like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. Nobody's talking to me. Except my mom, right? Mom's still there, and I remember this kid comes up to me and he goes, "Are you done yet?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, am I done yet?" He's like, "Are you done? Like, what are you doing with your life?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I'm trying to figure it out." And he's like, "Well, do you want to live a different way?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do." He goes, "All right, take down my number," right?
Cool.
So that was like my first introduction to like a member of Alcoholics Anonymous coming up to me, spotting me out of the crowd and being like, "This kid's sick. He needs help."
Yeah.
So I take this kid's number down and, I give him a call, and I was nervous. I'm like, I don't know what to say to this kid.
Right.
And he's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And, I didn't think you were going to call me, and I'm like, "Listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling. I don't know how to stay sober. I need help." Right. He goes, "Okay, start calling me every day," right? So I start calling this kid every day, and, we start getting into the book. We start getting into actual recovery. I'm going to AA meetings now, Crossroads and all these other places down there, Sam, and Delray Beach.
Sure.
And I'm starting to feel better. Like my mind's cleared up. I'm starting to feel good. Like that hole in my body of that void is starting to shrink.
Definitely.
Because I'm feeding myself now with spirituality and good things and positivity. And, there was this Monday night bonfire meeting that was down there in the back of my friend's backyard. And it was a men's meeting. And that was like a pillar of my sobriety for a long time down there.
That's cool.
I miss that, man. Like I miss those early sobriety days where like you're in the
best,
halfway
dude.
house
Playing spades.
And like the only concern on your mind is like how you're going to get your next Red Bull
Or your next pack of Newports.
Right.
Yeah. Eating peanut butter and jellies in the middle of the
eating
night.
peanut butter,
dude.
jellies, and ramen, but you're happy as can be.
Oh, it's the best.
Not a
dude.
worry in the world, right?
Those literally, I think about those days. I think about my first 3 years of continuous sobriety as being like, you're kind of like reborn. So it's almost like you're a child again. You know what I mean? And I loved the simplicities of life. Like I
You
learned
didn't
how to
have
laugh
anything.
again.
You didn't have anything to worry about either.
Yeah.
Like you were young enough to where you could go live in a sober home and not have to worry about bills. Right? Like
Exactly.
you had
You're
nothing.
not wrong.
Like it's that freedom is when you have nothing left to lose. You know, like that. It's you're at the bottom looking straight up.
Exactly.
And with nothing around you, no bills, no jobs. Like when I got out of treatment, I literally had to go back to work. I had a really good job.
Yeah.
So that's what I didn't do anything like that, but I understand the feeling. But you did that because you were so young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? which is a great thing for you guys.
I think about people today that like don't have. I remember the first time I put together continuous sobriety. I ultimately relapsed around the time my oldest daughter was 1. You know what I mean? And it was much different coming back around. It was much different coming back around knowing that I had to get back to them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it was significantly, dude, I was working at a coffee shop making $300 a week, maybe, and 150 of it was going to my now wife at the time, my baby mom, you know? It's a lot different than those early days where a week's pay, you can just go to the movies and you can ball out, buy the new guy a hoagie from Wawa, and a pack of ports,
That's
two
balling out.
monsters.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
a
like
pair
go
of
to
Jordans.
or go to Marshall's, dude, and spend your whole check on some fake Ralph, fake Ralph Lauren. Like, it was way different, dude.
Yep.
That's why when I see guys struggle now, like, and they're about to go through a divorce, and their kids are 16 or 17, and they don't have a cent paid for their oldest child, who, by the way, hates them to go to college.
Sure.
I have a different type of empathy for that guy.
Of course.
Because I, to be honest, haven't been there. And neither of you.
Nope.
And neither of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's, man, I think about those days a lot.
Yeah.
The recovery house I got sober in isn't there anymore. I used to think about just driving out there and just taking those guys to a meeting and running a game of spades until I couldn't, like, stay awake anymore.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
The best days of my
100%.
life, dude. But then you start to grow up.
Exactly.
And deal with the real complications of life. And there's a reason. Like, God did that for you for a reason. He gave you that nice cushion of time to learn how to love, to find gratitude, to do that again. So you had good boots on your feet to stand up to the real challenges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. I totally agree with that because, like, that was my first taste of, like, wow, like, life can be good, you know, without drugs and alcohol. You know, like, I can actually be happy. I can be content. I can laugh. I can feel good about myself, you know? And, that was a really good, period of time for me. You know, I was in Florida and I have about, a year sober at this time. I'm through the work. I'm sponsoring guys. Now, I end up getting a motorcycle.
No way.
Right?
In Florida?
In Florida.
Yeah,
right?
of course. What a better
I don't have
Nice.
a car, right? I'm in a halfway house, right? And I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, I need transportation, right? Because I'm tired of taking the bus to work every day, right? I'm tired of calling people for rides. So instead of being like, oh, you know what? Let me go get a $3,000, $4,000 car, I go get a $4,000 street bike, right?
Nice.
Yeah, right? Like, that's smart, right?
Yeah. Perfect for the weather.
So perfect for the weather, But, like, again, all about looks. You know what I'm saying? If I can't get the car that I want, I want to get a street bike so I look cool. So, people don't look at me like I'm this, whatever. That's my disease and my addiction. So I get this street bike, not the best decision in the world. And, I remember my mom sends me the money, gives me like $4,000 again. Here comes Mom, save the day. And I go to Miami. I pick up this street bike and I'm driving it back on 95, no helmet, ripping it. He's following me. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is great. So I put like $4,000 worth of work into this bike, right? I'm working now. I'm sober. I'm getting this bike faster and faster, right? And I take it out for a day and I get hit by a car.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah. No helmet.
No, listen, this is crazy, right? So I bought a helmet 2 days before this happened.
No way.
16-year-old girl joyriding her parents' car decides to cut me off in a minivan, and I slam into the side of the minivan and go through the window.
No way. Through the window of the minivan?
Through the window of the minivan.
Wow.
Yes. Whew. If I didn't have that helmet, I would have been dead.
You'd be dead.
Of course.
Your head would have been chopped off.
100%. Yeah. So I can cuss on impact, right? All I remember now that I look back at it was laying on the ground, going in and out, people looking at me, are you okay? Then I go back out, ambulance, wake up in the hospital, right? I'm looking down. My first experience of that was I wake up in this hospital, I look down, and there's this sheet on me, and it's covered in blood, right? And I'm looking at the nurse, and I'm like, is everything okay down there? She's like, don't worry, everything's all right.
Oh, my God.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my thought, you know?
Of course, that's as big as
Meanwhile, I have this gash going down my leg, right? That she said if it went half an inch deeper, it was right above my artery, you would have bled out and died, right?
Wow.
And 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 then there's the two police officers standing there, right? Because I didn't have a motorcycle license.
Oh,
Florida,
dude.
you could register a bike, right?
Yeah.
I was like, what do I need a license for? I'll
Yeah,
register the bike.
Of course.
Here's your ticket. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're saying to me. So obviously they give me Dilaudid and pain medication because I hurt myself pretty bad.
How much time did you have sober at the time?
This was about 12 months.
About a year.
12 months,
Damn,
right?
dude.
So I go back to my halfway house and they see what happens. I'm on crutches and, I'm like, here's my pain medication. They take it, they flush it down the toilet, right? And I'm like, come on, guys. Like, I'm on crutches, I'm like banged up.
They were hardcore.
Hardcore, yeah. So I can't get through this pain. I end up going finding what I want. I'm crutching down the street about a mile on crutches. Again, the insanity, right? To go get what I want because now that monster was waking up in me again, right? So all this stuff in sobriety that I felt good about and all this stuff was out the door. Instantly. Because of that moment, right? Yeah. So now I'm down in Florida. Now I'm back to it again. And, it's worse because I end up getting kicked out of the halfway house, right? I end up homeless on the beach. All my bridges are pretty much burned with treatment centers at this time. Like, this was my last go-around down there, right? And I remember this was before I came back to New Jersey and, like, things started to get, like, really good for me and sobriety really started to kick in. This was, like, a moment where I'm on the beach, right? And my parents don't know what's going on at this time. And I'm smoking crack on the beach underneath a boat, right? Running back and forth to the guard stand, thinking people are coming onto the beach at night. Of course,
right.
Like a
Peeping
psychopath.
through the blinds.
Yeah, sicko, right? Psychopath.
Yeah, of course.
And my dad calls me, right? And he's like, hey, son, what's going on? Like, I just want to tell you I love you. Are you okay?
Really?
Dude, that phone call for some reason, him not knowing what was going on, and just like he was so proud of me,
He thought you were a year sober.
Meanwhile, this is what I'm doing. It killed me, dude. Like, it totally ripped my heart out of my chest. And I said, yeah, Dad, I'm all right. Let me call you later. I hang up the phone, instantly call my friend, and I'm like, I need help. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to get back to where I was. I need to be sober again. I don't want to live like this anymore. And that was a really big, like, emotional bottom for me, and he says, okay, where's your willingness at, right? I said, I will do anything in my power to get sober right now, right? Keep this thought in mind because this is where the insanity comes in after, right? Anything. I would have done anything, right? He says, all right, I want you to go to Delray Beach psych ward. Tell me you want to kill yourself. You're going to detox through the psych ward because I'm not putting you in another treatment center. And if you do that, I may scholarship you to a treatment center up in New Jersey. No problem, right? Whatever I need to do at this point. Like, I am full in it. My buddy's watching me for like a day. I had to like handle some things, right? And he's freaked out, right? He's like, him, right?
I know.
You know this guy,
okay,
right? I'm in his condo, right? My dad's calling him, and you know who my dad is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, my dad's calling him saying, if something happens to my son, I'm flying down to Florida, right? And this kid's freaked out, right?
Yeah.
He's like, Steve, you better not do anything. Like, your dad's going to come down here, blah, blah, blah. And, anyone that's listening who knows my dad, you know why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
So, he's all freaked out, right? And I'm like, Mike, it's going to be fine. I'm going in, right? So I go into this psych ward, right? I go detox. And at this time, I could have passed a lie detector test that I was going to stay sober, right? Begged my friend. He said, if you do anything, I'm pulling that scholarship. This is done, right? I go through the psych ward. As soon as I walk out of the hospital, my drug dealer is standing right there.
Why? Just by chance?
No. Someone like hit him in the head with a hammer.
No way.
He was in the hospital.
He was in the hospital too.
He was in the hospital too.
No way.
Right? So all that, I'll do anything at that moment, right? Out the door.
Wash.
Gone. Wash.
We live in the moment. Too.
Isn't that
in those
crazy,
moments,
though?
You ever like see that moment and you decide, first of all, you decide you're going to use.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'll just make it work tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just need one more
One
day.
more. Yep.
One more day. And dude,
That's the thinking.
I could
That's
talk
the
about
thinking.
that forever. That
Exactly.
mentality where the rest of your entire existence is blocked out outside of that one more is insane.
Every fiber of my being, when I was telling him that I will stay sober, I believed that. Like,
yeah, of course.
you know?
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw that guy, it was like my mind just went straight to, I need to get another one.
One
right?
last run, yeah.
One last one, right? I get my one last one. Friend doesn't find out about it, you know. I tell him later on, he's like, you jerk off.
Yeah.
You know? He's like, you scumbag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, by the way, you know, when
by
you
the
sent
way.
me there, yeah.
Speaking
I
of
gotta-
making amends.
Yeah, I got to make an amends.
We
you
have
know?
to tell you.
Yeah.
A fine step 9.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I get sent back to New Jersey, right? Now, I'm on this plane and I'm telling all my friends in Florida that I'm not staying in New Jersey because all I know up there is how to get high, right? I don't know anything about recovery or sobriety. And they just tell me, Steve, stick it out. That's it. See how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So I get up there, I go to this program down in Ventnor, and, you know, now I'm in this program. I go through detox. I'm in, you know, PHP, and I go through the whole program. You know, now I'm starting to get my bearings again, right?
Yeah.
I end up getting a sponsor. I'm doing the step work while I'm in the treatment center. I'm writing a 4th step, you know, because now I'm like, I want to get that feeling back again, right? I want to get that sobriety again, like
Sure.
that just clear-headed, like, you know what, like it's any day was good, you know what I'm saying? Like I was dying for that feeling again. And, you know, I'm doing everything I need to do. And, you know, I end up getting to an Oxford House after, you know, I go to IOP, the Oxford House, the whole deal. And, you know, I'm remembering what my friend said to me of like, just stick it out, right? And I'm like, you know what? This is actually working, right? Because it's not where I'm at. You know, I'm bringing myself everywhere I go, right? So I can get sober anywhere if I have the willingness to do so. If I am in that drastic point of my life of that I'm done.
Sure.
You know? And, you know, I get sober again up in New Jersey and, you know, things start falling into place, right? I'm working these jobs just to put money in my pocket while I'm in the Oxford House. My dad calls me up, you know, you're doing really good. I got like a year again at this time, invites me to come live with him. You know, I get out of this Oxford House in Atlantic City. I go back up to his house. Now I'm living with my father, and, you know, he presents an opportunity for me to get back into the union.
Nice.
Right? So now, like, the doors are starting to open. Life is starting to kick up, right?
Yeah.
Now this purpose is starting to come into my life. Sobriety is really giving me gifts. God is really giving me gifts, right? I get into the union. You know, things are going great. I'm living at my dad's. I'm through my steps again. I'm sponsoring guys. And, you know, I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like, I've arrived.
What
you
year
know?
was that?
This was 2016. I came back to New Jersey. Yeah.
Cool.
And this was around 2017 when all this started happening again. So, you know, I'm like, this is my dream job again. You know, I'm making great money. You know, my family is all in my life and involved again, and everything's good. You know, and then you know, I meet a girl, you know, who is now my ex-wife. And, you know, at the time, I'm like, you know, this is great. You know, like, I meet this girl, you know, everything is going good. And, you know, I'm with this girl for a while, and I'm like, you know what? I love this girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be with this girl. And, you know, this is where, like, again, my disease, you know, kicks in, right? Because now I have the job, I have the girl, right? I have the outside things, right? And this is when, like, I know I'm in trouble, right? Because life gets good and life gets busy, and now I'm starting to stray away, right? I'm starting to stray away from AA. I'm starting to stray away from praying. I'm starting to stray away from my daily routine. And again, like, you know, I get caught in this cycle of, like, all right, I'm okay now because now I have the job. Now I have the girl. Now I have this. Now I have that. What do I need that for, right? What do I need the thing that gave me all of this? You know what I'm saying? That blessed me with all these things. What do I need that for now? Because now Steve, you know, is Mr. So-and-so, and now I could figure it out, right? The ego inflates. The pride inflates.
Happens to all of us, brother.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
now I'm thinking, you know, I got life by the balls now. You know, now I got this, right? So, that goes on for a while. Before you know it, I am so removed from Alcoholics Anonymous. I am so removed from that whole life. Now I have a resentment against AA, right? What do these people know? But now I'm still working. I'm still with the girl, right? Let the outside look good, right? But meanwhile, on the inside, I'm dying. And, I end up having another relapse. And, this was like a point where like, it was different this time because I had all these things in my life now. And like beforehand, like I'm coming to treatment centers and places with 2 garbage bags full of my name of clothes. That's all I had. I never knew what life was like to be sober and actually have things and have family back into your life and friends and a relationship. And, I have all these things and I end up relapsing because, again, I removed myself from all this stuff and I'm not feeling okay about myself. I'm not content with life. I'm not happy with what I have. And it's like, nothing's good enough, So now I'm irritable, restless, and discontent again, and I don't want to feel this way. So what am I going to do? My solution? Drugs and alcohol, So I end up having this small relapse and, I remember being in that detox and I'm like, what did I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to lose everything, Like that fear of actually losing something in my life kicked in.
Yeah.
So was that your last time in treatment?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is
what year was that?
This was 2000, when was it? 2019? Yeah, 2019, right before COVID.
Cool.
And that was my last time in treatment. I get out. Now, mind you, I'm with this girl still, right? Who is my ex-wife now. And while I'm in treatment, she's planning out this whole wedding, right?
No way.
Yeah. So beforehand, I end up proposing to this girl, right? And meanwhile, like, at that time, when I was getting high, I ended up going on maintenance again. I proposed to this girl. I'm thinking this is the person that I want to be with for the rest of my life. I still have my job, but, that is kind of like on its way out a little bit because the company's catching on. And now I got to go to this treatment center for the last time. And, I'm in treatment and she is basically planning this whole wedding out while I'm in treatment. I don't even know myself at this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been so consumed for the past couple years of being under substances again. It's like, I don't even know who I am. So I get out of treatment and 2 months later, I'm in a wedding, right? And I'm getting married and I'm thinking like, this is going to fix my relationship. Like, I have to do this now, And like, that's the insanity of like, okay, my disease of wanting to please somebody else or also feeling I need someone in my life is now putting me in a position of like, I'm hurting 2 people now. I'm not being real with this person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not being real with myself. I'm just going running off my feelings, So instead of saying like the responsible thing of like, let's postpone this, let me get sober, let me get a year under my
Get
belt.
some time under you.
Before I make this drastic decision in sobriety, I jump right into it, right? So, now I'm in a wedding, I'm getting married, and, everything I'm thinking is good. And, this is where, when I talked about in the beginning of like learning about relationships and like marriage and all that stuff of how I, was looking back at my father and my mother's marriage, this kind of like opened my eyes to like,
Sure.
relationships and like marriage and like why things don't work out sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, this really kind of opened me up to like, you know what? Sometimes people just don't work out in life. Things just don't have,
That's it.
It just is what it is,
Your parents happened to make it 30 years, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My parents happened to make it 30 years. I made it 12 months.
Sometimes
you know what I'm
it's just
saying?
wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time.
So,
you know?
I mean, like, to wrap things up a little bit, I know you work in the treatment field. You do really, really well with helping people.
Yes.
What's your, talk about that for just a minute before we kind of wrap things up. Your,
So,
your sober life, helping people.
Yeah. So to speed it all along, I bring up all those situations, right? And I wanted to just bring, my mother recently passing away too, to cancer. I'm bringing up these situations because I got through a divorce sober, right? I got through my mother passing sober, and it was very difficult. you know, and I leaned on AA and, you know, the support around me, you know, and these are things in my life that I never thought I'd be able to get through
Sure.
sober, you know. So, you know, my life today is, you know, I work in the substance abuse field. You know, I'm involved in my recovery. I have a sponsor. I'm, you know, doing, you know, everything that I need to do for myself. You know, and I thoroughly enjoy helping others. You know, I thoroughly enjoy sitting across from another guy and, you know, going through the book with them and seeing the light turn on in their eyes.
The best,
Right.
You know, like that's my reward in life today. You know, and, you know, also my reward in life today is, you know, getting those phone calls from parents too, saying like, you saved my son's life.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
It
you
is
so
great
much.
when you get those calls or text messages.
Yeah.
I get those too, and it feels
Oh, it's the
great.
best. Dude, sometimes
Yeah.
I get a call from a guy, I don't even know his name. He's like, yo, brother, just celebrated 3 years. Just wanted to thank you again.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And not,
It
not to like be
happens- it
rude,
happens
but
a-
like,
I have to go back into my
for you,
files.
I can't even
And
imagine.
it's like,
Yeah.
who is this again?
Yeah.
Oh,
for you.
right, right.
I'll
Yeah.
get text, yo, 4 or 5 years today. I'm like,
That's the best.
Good for you, bro.
Know,
You know
good-
what I mean?
It feels so good to get
It's
those
the
text
best.
messages of like, hey man, like I just want to thank you for helping me out, you know, and you know, like my life today is full of abundance and you know, listen, life is life. That's what I've learned. It's going to show up. You know, the past 2 years of my life have been a roller coaster.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
but you
You've
got a
definitely been
great
through it this
story,
year.
real inspirational, and it was just it was great hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really personally appreciate you agreeing to come on the podcast. I know it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were planned like months ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Being you're so
Yep.
busy in the recovery world,
Mm-hmm.
we had to push it back. But you know, we finally got you on, and I personally appreciate it. I know Sam
course.
does too.
Oh, I love
yeah,
that, bro.
no,
What
you,
a story.
Thank
dude.
you for having me on here. You know,
No problem. We loved having
100%.
you on, and I just want to sign us off. This is Vinny from Tenacious Recovery. You got to be tenacious about your recovery if you want to stay sober. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
I'm Sam. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And we're here with Steve Sarica.
yep. Alcoholic and an addict.
My man.
He
And we're going to sign
was
things off. Really appreciate you doing this. And God willing, we'll see you